Good morning, friends. You're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
We're out in the greenhouse with the fans turned off. It was on earlier, and it's a pretty high velocity fan, and it was blowing Irene's hair and my hair all over the place.
It's a noise factor. We're not a fashion channel, so we're not that concerned about the hair, but it's the I can't hear myself think thing that becomes a problem.
We're standing out here in the greenhouse right next to our tomato plants that are doing amazingly well.
Right, when you say I can stand in the shade of my tomato plants, you know they've done okay.
So one of the things we're debating is exactly how we're going to lean these tomatoes. I didn't anticipate the tomatoes would grow this well. This is the best that we've had.
Yeah,
in the
they
years we've been doing
did
this.
well last year, but they didn't grow that tall. And this year they've gone woo.
So Irene's going to be doing some work in here. I'm getting ready to go out and move hoses around so I can turn on this evaporative cooler behind us and actually have it work the way it's supposed to. And when I'm ready to do that, I'll bring a thermometer out and we'll show you the temperature before and once it starts running.
Right. And we have a couple of specific questions that I'm going to try to answer for people today. One of the questions I've consistently gotten is the difference between male and female flowers. Now, I won't be able to show you that in here because all of our flowers in here are of one sex. I don't think, I could check the cantaloupes. I might have some there that will show. But both tomatoes and this type of cucumber are self-fertile. That means they have both male and female parts, so you don't have distinctive flower types. That's kind of a mystery to a lot of people, how you can know the difference between your male and female flowers.
It's pretty easy. In a kind of a quirk of nature,
Yes.
the female flowers have balls on the back.
Uh-huh. And the males don't.
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought, right?
Anyway, well, have fun. I'm going to go out and start moving those hoses around. It's going to be warm today, but not terribly warm. It'll be up in the low 90s, which isn't bad. Yesterday we were down in Phoenix and it was hot.
104. And it was intense. It was just still most of the time. So you'd go out there and you're like, ugh.
All right.
And your car, of course, is only about 140 degrees. So
Don't work too long with the fans off.
no, I'm not. I'm going to turn those back on fairly soon. Okay, what I'm here for this morning is a couple of different things. Henry and I needed to talk about how we're going to set up the new cable. We're going to put up a new cable for this tomatoes so that some of the tomatoes that are on this side can be leaned out this way. And that'll give us more space to lean and drop our plants as they get bigger. Because right now we're getting kind of crowded in here. It's actually kind of hard to sort what belongs to what plant. Now, I was watching CB this morning on YouTube from CB's garden, greenhouse and garden, and he was talking about blossom drop on some of his tomatoes. We've been doing okay, but we did have a couple. I noticed there's a few spots here where there used to be blossoms where there aren't anymore. So we have lost a few. Usually we don't have, these tomatoes, most of these are specifically designed for use in greenhouses, so they are more heat tolerant and less susceptible to blossom drop. But I have seen a few that we've lost in here. And we did have some blossom end rot because our plants got bigger than we wanted them to before they wound up being transplanted into the Dutch buckets. That means we were really stressing plants that were already starting to produce, already had flowers on them, in some cases already had small fruits on them. And some of the plants just couldn't tolerate that. So we did get a few fruits that we lost to blossom end rot. These plants have since been sprayed with calcium. And we haven't seen any more problems on any new fruit. Crossing our fingers. Henry has a theory about what happened with the water here in the reservoir, and we think it has to do with the water source. We were originally using all rainwater, which has a lower mineral content, and when we had to switch to well water because we get our water from town, which is wells, that higher mineral content probably caused some of the calcium to precipitate out, which made it unavailable to the plants. So that's our theory, as to the fact that they just wound up sort of bound up. I am going to eventually trim these tomatoes, but I want to wait until we get our new setup here, because sometimes in the process of moving tomatoes and doing different things, you can break branches. And as I mentioned in one of the previous, actually in the garden tour video that I did the other day, when we transplant tomatoes, I will sometimes take off the very bottom branches that would be in the way literally while I'm trying to plant, especially when I'm planting a tomato down. But I generally leave pretty much everything else on the plant, because some branches may do fine, some may be broken in the process of planting or whatever. But if you wait about a week until after the plant is situated, then you can look at the plant objectively and say, okay, this is an original branch, it's yellowed, it looks crappy, it's not going to ever be nice looking again. But this other branch over here that is actually a sucker, I can replace it with that. So you actually switch out and choose which branches you need. We've had stuff spread all over our dining room table and our kitchen table lately. The kitchen table was mostly irrigation, and the dining room table was mostly notes on seeds and seeds. So I managed to get through most of the dining room table the other day while Henry was doing one other project, and then another project he was working on, I got through the kitchen table. So the irrigation parts have mostly been consolidated. About half of them are off the table now into the boxes they're supposed to be in too. Let me show you first a tomato flower. This flower that I just took a picture of is a classic nightshade family flower. Now, what do I mean by that? And you can see that center section. The petals of the flower tend to bend back away from the center section. And that is your classic nightshade family flower. We see it on tomatoes, and we see it on all the other nightshades to some extent. Out here we have wild nightshades. These are called solanum. They are a prickly, awful plant. I mean, they're gorgeous, but they're awful. But take a look at the flower. Same sort of thing. Petals that fold back, and then stuff in the middle. And these are your classic nightshade plants. Now, the reason we're not particularly fond of these, stems on this stuff are brutal. They have stickers that can be as much as 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch long. The stickers are a sort of a pinkish translucent color. The problem with them is that when they get into your fingers or toes or any other part of yourself, or a dog or a cat or whatever, they are really, really hard to see. These ones over here are in a little bit better shape. These are newer flowers. And you can see here how that flower petals bend back. They're a really beautiful flower, and I actually like them a lot, and I sometimes will leave the plants in place. I just never let them go to seed. These seeds can live for at least years, if not decades, in the soil. So you'll swear you didn't have anything like this around here, and then, yeah, they'll pop up anyway. These are cucumbers. However, these are ganaceous cucumbers. That means they are self-pollinating. That means you do not have male and female flowers. So every one of these flowers will look the same. They will all just look like a flower. And there's nothing about them that says boy or girl. And that's perfect for in use in a greenhouse, because you don't have to worry about having a male flowers, female flowers. Every plant just does its thing. I do have some cantaloupe over here. Let's see if we can spot some cantaloupe flowers that are one way or the other. It is early in the bloom cycle, so sometimes early in the bloom cycle we get all males. Let's see, I'm not seeing any that are distinctly female. And it's been a while since I've grown this particular variety. Now, this is a cucumber. It's hard to tell on those too. Of course, I choose the one set of plants that's not easy to tell on. So I will have to go out to the garden and see if I can spot some that are distinctly male versus female. Squash are super easy. Oh, there's one. Okay, how do I get there from here? Okay, of course it's the plant that's on the back side of the bench here. Let me see if I can lift this. I don't want to mess the plant up. Okay. This is a perfect example. It was a cantaloupe. And I was thinking that all these flowers were male. And they are. If you look at this flower, you see how it's just petals, goes down nice and slim, and then go to a stick at the bottom of it. That's a male flower. See that flower there? It's not open yet, but the section on the right-hand side, over here, is going to be where the flower is. That bump behind it is what Henry said, the female flowers have balls and the males don't. That's exactly what he's talking about. When you have that sort of a bulge behind the petal area of the flower, that's when you have a female. And I suspected, because a lot of times in your squash plants and stuff, the early flowers are all male, which is just great, except it doesn't give you anything. And you're sitting there getting frustrated because you're seeing all these lovely flowers, but you're not getting any production out of it. That's because there's no girls involved. And the boys look pretty, but they don't do you any good when it comes to making fruit. So that is the difference between a male and a female flower. Whoosh! I'm blowing away as usual. Louder than you think.
It's much louder than you think.